Hey, I'm Rad Devin, and these are the essential tips and strategies I use to stay productive as a developer working from home. There are as many strategies for working from home as there are people who do it. I'm going to share with you a few of the best tips I have picked up over the last 7 years of working exclusively remotely. Let's start by talking about your routine. Set a time that you wake up and make sure you get up at that time every single day, even though since you're working from home, you probably don't have to. If you allow yourself to start slipping with just your wake up time, or maybe if you don't get dressed and you just wear your pajamas all day, maybe you decide to put off your shower, those things will allow you to let other parts of your routine slip, and then your productivity suffers. There's a lot of talk about communication with your team, but communication inside your household is also critically important if you're working from home. It's important to communicate with any other adults in your house and with any kids that live in your house to let them know what the expectations are around your working from home. If you have set hours that you work every day, make sure everybody knows what those are. If you don't have set hours, maybe you have some sort of signal like a sticky note on your desk, or if you have a separate office at home, you can close the door. Whatever technique you decide to use, you need to make it clear to the people around you that you are working during these times and you need to focus on that. The Pomodoro system can be a great tool. It teaches you to work uninterrupted for a period of time and then take a break for a smaller period of time. If you can teach your household members about that, then you can teach them that while you're inside the Pomodoro time, you shouldn't be bothered, and then during your break time, they can ask you a question or do whatever they need to do. The baseline Pomodoro technique uses 25-minute Pomodoro cycles and 5-minute breaks. I find that's not quite enough for me, so I usually go for 50-minute Pomodoro cycles and 10-minute breaks between, and that works pretty well. It's also useful to have a shared calendar with the other people in your household so that if you have meetings scheduled, you can put those on the calendar and other people can see them. Don't assume that those will be seen though. It's always good to give a manual person-to-person reminder to let people know, hey, I've got an important meeting at 2 p.m. today and it should last for 30 minutes or an hour. So make sure you leave me alone and let me conduct that meeting during those times. And just because communication with your household is maybe more important, don't neglect communication with your team. It is extremely important as well when you're working remotely. For real-time text communication, I like Slack. You can get a lot of mileage out of their free Slack channels. I've also used Teams, which is similar, but I don't like quite as much. It has some UI and UX quirks that just sort of bug me, but it will get the job done. For video communication, I know a lot of people use Zoom. I think it's a good piece of software. I have some privacy concerns about the way they share data with Facebook. I also think the user experience is a little clunky because they try to force you into downloading their client, even though you don't have to. The alternatives I prefer are Whereby at whereby.com. If you're doing small meetings, their free plan will get you through. I think they allow 4 attendees for a free meeting, and it's similar to Zoom, but it runs inside the browser, so there's no client to download. There are mobile clients. I'm not aware of any of these video conferencing solution that does mobile without a client. Another option I haven't gotten to try is Jitsi Meet. That's Jitsi. That one is similar to Whereby in that it's browser-based and it allows multiple people to join a meeting. I believe it is entirely free and doesn't have a hard limitation on the number of people that can join a call. So if you needed more than 4 people on a call, if you're meeting with a large team, Jitsi Meet might be an option to look at. Regardless of what tool you're using for real-time voice and video communication, it's nice to have a good headset. I use this one. It's a Sony Bluetooth headset. It is MDR 100 ABN. You'll never forget that model number. But anyway, this works really well. It syncs up to my laptop. But what this really gives me in a conference, video or voice, is it keeps what I'm hearing from the other users from spilling out back into the microphone. Since the sound is all isolated and just going into my ears, it doesn't echo back into the microphone. That seems like a small thing, but if you've ever heard yourself echoed back with just a short delay, like a half-second delay, it completely destroys your brain and your ability to form coherent thoughts. So if you want to have a seamless, productive conference, real-time video or voice conference, headsets for everybody involved are definitely the way to go. You can do much cheaper headsets too. It doesn't have to be a Bluetooth headset like that. Project management tools are also useful for communicating with your team. Look at options like Trello, Asana, and maybe Todoist for something a little more lightweight. There's also the sort of 800-pound gorilla that is Jira in this space. And honestly, I think it adds a lot of friction to your project management process, so I would stay away from that unless you're just working with a team who's already using it and it's already entrenched. These project management tools are also useful even if you're just working alone, because they help you track what you need to do next in your current projects. Makes it a lot harder for things to slip through the cracks. Email, of course, is an indispensable tool. I try to use it pretty sparingly because I find it's very easy to upset the signal-to-noise ratio in your inbox. You start getting too much junk notifications from apps like Jira or other applications you're using, and then it makes it harder to decide which emails are important for you to actually read and which ones are just junk coming from some application that needs to be ignored. On that note, I think it's important to get together and try to decide what are the boundaries for the different communication tools we use. So what sort of communication goes to Slack, and what are the expectations around how that's treated? If I send something in Slack, should people be monitoring that all the time? Should I get a response within 15 minutes? Probably not if you want people in your team to stay productive, but maybe that is your expectation. Whatever the case, it's important to lay those out beforehand, and what sort of messaging goes out over email versus what gets created as a ticket in a project management software. Setting those boundaries beforehand makes it easier to know where to put something, but it also makes it easier to know where to find something when you need to go back and see what was happening with this project on this date. Let's talk for a minute about mental health. Hopefully, if you're working in an office, they have built a culture around doing the things you need to do to protect your mental health. But if you're working at home, you have to build that culture yourself. For me, meditation is huge. I try to do that every morning just to center myself and right myself for the upcoming day. Also to teach me that I can be in the moment anytime, even when I'm not sitting down to meditate. And those quick breaks to just notice the things you're noticing and be in the moment are invaluable as you're going throughout your day. I also think a lot about Stoic philosophy. It helps me out a ton in times like this one. For anyone watching after the fact, it's 2020. We're in the middle of a coronavirus epidemic, and everything is just kind of up in the air and uncertain right now. So it's easy to get down about that. Stoicism has a lot of tools to help with that. I talked in another video about a book, The Obstacle is the Way. I highly recommend you read that for a great and accessible intro to Stoicism. Another thing you need to do to protect your mental health is just play. Find times that you can do something besides working. There are two extremes people take when they work from home. They might sit on the extreme I talked about earlier, where you snooze your alarm and you don't really get dressed and everything just kind of falls apart and you're maybe not doing much of anything. Or they say, oh, okay, well, now home is my office and I'm always here, so I need to always be working because I'm always in the place where I work. Neither of those are the way you want to go. So even while you're preserving your routine and making sure you get your work done and you have time set aside for it, that you're not interrupted, you also want to take deliberate time to be interrupted and to do something that is not strictly productive in the business sense. I enjoy playing video games, and I also like to watch Netflix. Some of the things I've been hearing about other people doing to keep busy during this time and to find time for relaxation are miniature painting for tabletop games. My mom does another style of miniatures. She builds and decorates and paints dollhouses. My daughter likes to knit occasionally, but recently she's been stuck in Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. My wife reads a lot. Find the things that appeal to you and take some time out from your work to do those things. It's also good to take walks. It helps us get a little bit of vitamin D, which is tough to come by when we're stuck inside all the time. It also gives you a chance to see other people, although make sure you are maintaining your distance from them so you don't spread this virus. Still a great reminder, though, that the world is still turning and things are still happening. People are still living their lives in spite of all this. Walks are also good for your physical health, too, and that is really important to maintain while you're working at home. In addition to those walks, you want to make sure you snack responsibly. Be careful about bringing snacks into your workspace, which can be dangerous if you don't control how much you're taking in. Make sure you are drinking water. You should always have a full glass or a bottle of water at your workspace so that you can drink it throughout the day.
Water?
Yeah.
You mean like in the toilet?
I'm intrigued by those water bottles that have markers for how much you should have drunk by various times in the day. I think that's a cool approach, although I haven't tried them yet, but maybe that's something to try. Move around throughout your day, especially if you work seated. Make sure you're getting up and walking around and you're not just sitting down for 8 hours a day. I work at a standing desk, which makes it a little bit easier to move around, but as long as you're aware of what's happening and have some mechanism to remind you to get up and move around, a seated desk works just fine too. And then pay attention to the ergonomics of your workspace. This is a massive subject and I'm not going to try to cover it in this video, but I am going to share with you another video that I think does a really good job of covering the basics of workplace ergonomics. I've probably missed 100 different things that you should be doing if you're working from home. So please share any you have in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to stay safe and stay healthy, and I will see you in the next one.